Okay. Blazing What Ifs here. Take 3 of What If Deku Was a Cyborg, Part 3. And where we last left off, all the villains were coming through into the USJ. Aizawa immediately tells everybody to get back and tells Ida to go and warn all the other heroes, which he does. And Kurogiri tries to stop him, and, but Ida eventually gets out anyway and goes and starts running to get all of the other heroes. And towards the fight, everyone gets split up. Deku gets sent to the water area with Asui, and it would be her. And Rinko, because I forgot her name. Sorry, guys. And Rinko. So both of them are there. So what ends up happening is every time someone tries to climb up, Rinko just stabs them with the tail and they're paralyzed and they fall back into the water. And he goes, and Izuka goes, and he's just firing low burst lasers out towards everyone, towards all the people he can in the water, stunning them effectively. He has his laser set to stun. He doesn't want to kill anybody, just makes them not be able to move for a bit, just disable them. I'm sorry if you hear that in the background. I don't know who that is. Well, it's probably my brother because he's the only other one home. But I don't know what he's doing. And so, moving on. They end up escaping. Izuku is waterproof. Because, come on, why would I not make him waterproof? That's just stupid. That's a design error right there. So, it's not like if he gets water on him, he's gonna short circuit. That just seems like a terrible weakness. Like eating a devil fruit. But anyway. He, goes back and he does stop Shigaraki from, doing that by firing off a laser, and, he kind of backs off and it hits the Nomu instead. And Shigaraki tells the Nomu to kill Izuku. So then a fight breaks out between Izuku and the Nomu, and then Izuku realizes, hold on. If this guy's giving the orders, then, cut off the head of the snake and the body dies. So he tries to go after, Shigaraki, and fires off a laser, but then it just goes through a portal. Kurogiri opens up a portal and it ends up hitting him instead, which he's not that affected by it because it's his own laser. He just reabsorbs the energy back into him. That's how his body works. But he's like, shit, I'm gonna have to get into close combat in order to fight this thing, and he's and all while doing this, continuously dodging all of the Nomu's attacks. So he goes and he tries to punch Shigaraki, and while successfully doing so, Shigaraki lays all 5 of his fingers onto his left arm that he punched Shigaraki with. So it starts slowly, decaying. He's like, now you're gonna die. And Shigaraki's being cocky, he's like, too bad. Now you're gonna die. And he just takes off the arm. It's like, and while continuously dodging the Nomu's attack, she's like, am I though? It's like, am I though? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're the one who's trapped. And as he says that, he sees that all the little beads from his left arm left and are now surrounding him. And they all light up with that crimson energy. And he finds that he cannot use his quirk anymore. Well, his left arm is still slowly decaying because the way I see it, Shigaraki just speeds up the decay time. His quirk just speeds up the decaying rate of, an object. And this was meant to last a long time, so it's like going very slowly from the points of contact. And what he does is he turns his left arm and it transforms into a sword. If any of you have ever seen Prototype, played a Prototype game, the first Prototype game to be specific, his blade arm, that's kind of the shape of this sword. It's kind of like a circular edge blade, so it's not like a normal sword. And it is still slowly decaying, but again, it's very slow, and it's not like it's gonna kill him because now it's no longer attached to the rest of his body. So now he's just parrying all the Nomu's attacks almost effortlessly, and trying to come up with a way to kill this thing, and the Nomu is getting smarter and smarter as it goes on. He's starting to land punches on his body, and Shigaraki is smiling. He's just like, yes, now it doesn't matter if you've trapped me, because now, the Nomu is going to beat you. Oh, and he notices every time the Nomu punches him, it's not doing anything. Like, he can punch him anywhere, and it doesn't do anything. Because, like I said, this metal is strong enough to handle One For All if, it's meant for him, like, it's stronger. Like, if he was the next successor of One For All, it'd be able to, like, tank hits from that. So, like, what this Nomu is doing is nothing compared to that. Because I'm saying, like, Izuku, if, like, the next wielder of One For All, whoever the next wielder of One For All is when they are using 75% of their full power, that's like All Might in his prime using 100% of One For All. So it's like, and since this thing is meant to kill All Might, and All Might was still able to beat it, his punches are like nothing to this metal. I mean, of course, the force is still making Izuku feel pain because he can still feel pain, but it's not really doing any damage at all. So he's just constantly parrying his attacks, and he's realizing that, this thing's healing from all of his attacks, because he's attacking back every once in a while. He's not just continuously parrying forever and ever. And he's like, I wonder what would happen if and he just stabs his sword all the way through, piercing through his heart, or getting like wrist deep into the Nomu. And all the while, Kurogiri is trying to like open a portal inside of the, cage that Shigaraki is now trapped in, this like plasma cage that Shigaraki is now trapped in, which he can't do because it's like every time he tries, it just immediately closes. So he tries to like touch the plasma ship that makes this cage, and he touches it and it just burns him. And Shigaraki would have tried to do the same thing, like, like even if he could go through, Shigaraki can't get through any way, shape, or form. So even if Kurogiri put his hand in and then tried to open a portal, it still wouldn't do anything. You know what I mean? So he's doing that while this fight is going on. I'm gonna say it lasts a good 10 minutes. He's fighting this thing before Izuka goes and stabs it through the heart and goes wrist deep into the Nomu's chest, and then he releases the beads, a small amount of the beads that then encase itself around his heart. And as he pulls out, the plasma comes into play, and it stops him from regenerating. He can't regenerate his heart, so he just falls, and Izuka just kind of pushes him backwards, because, again, super strength. And he falls onto his back, and All Might comes in at this exact moment, and he looks pissed, only to see that Shigaraki has been captured, and this weird humanoid bird thing, this weird human body with a bird head and his brain sticking out in the open. And he's now, lying seemingly dead on the floor. And Shigaraki's getting pissed, throwing a temper tantrum. Nomu, get up, blah, 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 blah. And he's not doing it. He's like, how? And Kurogiri takes, doesn't feel like getting caught. So he goes back to the bar, and all for one is pissed. Really pissed. And the doctor tries to calm him down, and they try to start formulating a plan, what are we gonna do next? Because he told All for One that All Might wasn't even, there. All Might didn't even do anything. It was just this one kid that defeated the Nomu single-handedly, and captured the Nomu, that captured Shigaraki, and defeated the Nomu single-handedly. And, All for One got even more pissed at that. But going back to, that whole scenario, he goes and All Might talks to him, is like, do you, and he sees, because the helmet is still on Izuku, but, it's a thinner version of everything else, so some of it kind of got destroyed when the Nomu attacked. So when All Might comes, he could see the smile on Izuku's face, the genuine smile, the kind of smile that he normally does. And he's looking at Izuku he's already really strong. And he already knows Izuku's personality, because, he's looking for a new successor. So he's looking at everybody in the school, and he knows that it was, he knows the whole background of everybody. Nezu would have explained this to him, because, he's trying to find a new successor, and Nezu's trying to help him. So, there are really only two options in the school right now. Or three options, actually. There's either, Lemillion, because I forget his actual name. Mirio, that's what it was. So there's either Mirio or there's Nijire, or there's him, the first year. So there's two people from the big three, and then there's him. And he's like single-handedly taking out the two biggest, villains there, and forced others to retreat. And so, after the whole gathering everyone and making sure they're okay, and no one else, all the other fights in all the other areas go to canon. And Rinko, I forgot her name again. Yeah, Rinko. And Rinko is mesmerized by him because he saved her life, and he was just a really nice guy to begin with, right? Because he sacrificed his left arm to make sure no one else got hurt, because so she's starting to take an interest into our Izuku, and she could see a smile too, the genuine glowing smile that can attract the world. And so now she kind of starts to have a thing for him, for our Santo, I believe is the name I gave him. If not, I'll go look back. I'll have to look back. He's starting to think that maybe he would be a good successor. He looks like the kind of person who would risk his life for somebody else, because now he sees, he has a sword in his hand and he's missing an arm, and I think All Might's smart enough to realize, that because the blade kind of looks like it's made out of his tech, it looks kind of like, it has the red glowing substance in it, and it's that pure black that his arm was, that the rest of his body is at the moment. So, and it's kind of just, so I think he would realize that that's his arm, and he sees that it's slowly being destroyed by something, so he realizes that he was willing to sacrifice his own arm to save everybody else. And Aizawa's unconscious on the ground, kind of bleeding out, and so he throws away the blade, which then turns into the arm, confirming All Might's theory, and then further disintegrating into nothingness. Is as he grabs Aizawa and starts running, he's and All Might tries to stop him, and he goes up to the rest of the pro heroes, and he's like, we need to get him to the hospital fast. Or, we need to get him to a recovery girl fast. And, some of them, and there's, the ambulance is already there just in case. So they said, don't worry, kid, we'll take him. And then they go and they take him, and they take him off. Good, I'm gonna go find everybody else. And before the teachers can say no, he goes running off again. And before they could say anything else, these boosters come out of his back, and he uses his right arm and his feet, which are uncovered, to basically do an Iron Man and fly like Iron Man does. It's harder with only one hand, but you get the gist. And just takes off to go and find everybody else. So eventually they're all rounded up, and they go back to school, and the next day, Aizawa's wrapped in bandages. Is the fight is Mr. Aizawa, why are you here? Why are you here? You should be in bed, kind of a thing. And he's the fight isn't over yet. And everyone's what? More villains? And he's like, the UA Sports Festival is coming up in 3 weeks. And I'm like, oh god, you had us worried there for a minute. And he explains all of that, and that so you're going to be off for 3 weeks for training to train. And at this point, Izuku hasn't gotten his arm replaced, so he's still missing his left arm. And everyone knows what happens, and they feel sorry for Izuku because so early in his life, in his hero career, he's not even a hero yet, and he's already lost a limb. And Shigaraki was captured, and he was put in prison, and all of the beats that he had went back to his arm, to his right arm, the only one that still exists. Which means the Nomu came alive again, regenerated, because it doesn't have a soul, so it's not like that whole thing. But it did regenerate after it stopped, but Shigaraki was already long gone, so they just took him in as well. And so yeah. So they're all training their best. Within the first week, Izuku got his arm replaced. And it's the same thing, same thing as Jonas here. And he starts working out again and increasing the size and space he has inside of him. And he gets a few extra blasters in his biceps. And tricep that'll come out of his, his biceps and all that. 2 that come out of his back. And he has a thing implanted in his stomach too that will, pull in toxic chemicals out of the air. So, if someone uses this toxic gas, this poisonous gas or whatever, you could just suck it in all into his stomach and have it analyzed and, nullified before being released out into the air again. And so when it's released back out into the air again, it's just normal gases. It's no longer poisonous. And he has that implanted into his stomach, where his abs are. And so he gets those upgrades, And in case you haven't learned yet, his forearms can turn into the blades from Prototype, without all the weird genetic, tendril things being attached to it. Yeah. And so another week passes by, and it's the day that he got kidnapped. And he has something planned. So he went and he got his guitar from, his mother's house. And his mother's glad to see him, blah, 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 blah. Not getting too much into the reunion thing. And he gets his guitar, he puts it in his case, and he leaves a note on it, and he leaves it at his grave. And, and he hides nearby, telling the guards not to worry about if anyone takes it or not, because he doesn't really care. And the guards are like, okay. And, Kyoka comes and, doesn't see him because he's hidden. And so he goes. And he goes. Sorry, I got lost in thought there for a minute. And lost my train of thought. And so he's hiding, and she goes, and Kyoka goes, and she finds a guitar case there. It's like, must be, someone else, like his mother or something. And she sees a note on it, and it says, Kyoka, please read, on it. So she's like, what? And she goes and she opens it up, and reads the note. And it's just like, it says, look inside. And she opens it up, and she sees Izuku's guitar. This one. And she sees this guitar, Izuku's guitar. And she's surprised, to say the least. Because, why is this here? And there's another note on the inside. And so, she flips the note over to say, like, okay, is there anything else? And it says, there was no body. I'm still alive. And I'm closer than you think. This is clue number 1. Just wait. Because sooner or later, I'll give you number 2. Now come and find me. And it says signed. And it's signed Izuku Midoriya. And where is it? This one. And she's both, happy and sad. So it's not, she doesn't have this fit. She's like a weird mixture of both happiness and sadness. And she does start crying. Because, he's alive. I think the note made it pretty obvious that he's still alive. Now it's, where is he? He says he's close, but I don't think. But she realizes it's not much to really go on yet. So she starts, thinking closer than she thinks. What is that supposed to mean? I thought he was dead, so that could mean literally anywhere in the world, because I thought he was dead. And so, yeah. Because he's supposed to be dead. And then that train of thought goes to, why didn't he come back? It's been 3 years. Why didn't he come back? Why didn't he talk to me? What happened? I guess I'm just gonna have to find him or wait for other clues in order for that to become more clear. And so, for this last week of training, she's kind of out of it, to say the least. And so what few friends she's made, because she's friends with Momo and Rinko, being the kind of outgoing girl she is. Also like kind of talked to her, and they kind of became acquaintances, not yet friends, but getting there. So, she talks to Rinko and she talks to Momo. And they see that she's not as, and they're going to be training together. They see that she's not as focused. She's been spacing out a lot in the last week. So they go and talk to her about it, and she's like kind of like out of it, and she says, well, oh, oh, I don't know what to think anymore. And they were like, what? Because within the 2 weeks, she would have, like, opened up to them about, opened up to Momo about the whole, like, incident. And I think Rinko's, like, a really kind, person, and she would also trust Rinko, and tell her what happened when she was 12 and how her best friend got kidnapped, and she assumed that he was dead. But then she found this note, and she shows them the note. And both of them are surprised, because both of them saw, like, the news back 3 years ago, was saying that Izuka Midoriya, the son of the literal greatest robotic scientist in the world, got kidnapped, and we don't know what happened. And his body was never recovered, and he's just presumed dead. But now they're like, well, we gotta tell somebody, we gotta tell the news. But you can't really prove anything. But she's like, we can't really prove it. But Momo's like, we can't really prove anything off of this because we don't have any real evidence. This could just be somebody trying to mess with us so that you don't, so that you lose focus. But then Rinko's like, but no one else in our class knew that he was alive. No one else in the entire school knew that she was connected to Izuku or, Midoriya. So why would they do that? Why would they leave it so why would they leave a note unless it was him, unless he is actually alive? And it goes on this, conversation. It left that statement left both of them speechless, because it's basically saying there's no reason for anyone else to know about it, so they wouldn't do that unless he was actually alive, and he was the one who actually, and Izuku was the one who actually, posted it, because there's no other reason for it, right? So now the three of them are going to do a whole conspiracy theories, throughout all of this entire series, until like the end, and that's when this is going to really start taking effect. Until they find out who it actually is. That's when this is really gonna start taking effect. And I'm gonna be changing a few things around. The whole cultural festival thing, finding Eri and taking and helping her out, that's gonna happen earlier. They're gonna find Eri, and they're going to help her and hide her beforehand. So the final fight with Overhaul, that's gonna happen the same times that it does. Like the whole fight with Overhaul thing, that's still gonna happen when it does, like, in canon. But the whole cultural festival thing is gonna be right after they get their dorms. It's gonna be like a week after they get their dorms. If that's when it actually happens, then I'm just moving back other events. But yeah. So that's what's happening with them, and then we cut back to Izuku with who, at the beginning of the 3 weeks, after a week, has gotten his left arm back, and is still in the same condition, still in the same working order, so it's not like he's lost anything. If anything, he's only lost 1 week's worth of training, because he's not going to train his right side if he can't train his left side. And because, symmetry. Because then it just look weird. Look unproportional all the time. And after he gets his arm back, All Might comes up and talks to him, because he goes, off-grid for a week with his dad and gets his arm replaced. And as soon as he comes back, everyone's like, hold on, where'd he get the arm? And to that, his explanation is just, my dad is literally a robotics genius, and I'm literally made of machines, so it was pretty easy, actually. And everyone's now like, oh, it must be great to have a dad who could just replace your body parts at will. And Izuka just ignores this and is just like, whatever, dude. I actually felt the pain of losing an arm. You didn't. F off. And so he goes, I'm still recording, right? Okay, good. God, if I had to do this over again. And so, moving on to later themes. All Might comes up to Izuku and does the whole explanation of how he can't do anything anymore, and he is surprised because he doesn't hate heroes or in any way. He doesn't have any reason to dislike All Might. It's not like in those other stories where All Might never gave him anything, where All Might is Ass Might. Right? It's not one of those stories. So he goes up to Izuku, and Izuku is surprised and also saddened by the fact that, All Might isn't going to be able to be a hero for much longer at all. Well, and, extremely saddened by this fact, and that he needs someone to carry him on, and that All Might thinks he is the best choice. He's for One For All, because he would have explained One For All too. And Izuku looks up at him with happiness, excitement, and he says, All Might, I think my answer is going to be, I'm gonna leave you there. No, I'm kidding. You know what, guys? I'm gonna leave you there, man. I'm gonna leave you. No, I'm just fucking with you. No cliffhangers here, guys. Yet. I say yet. And, Izuku accepts All For One. Sorry, One For All. You know what I meant. He accepts One For All. So that whole thing happens. So he gets One For All. And for the next week, they start training with it. And by the end of the week, Izuku learns full cowling to charge up on his full body. And he can use 100% of One For All just because his body is, made of machinery that's durable enough to withstand any of the attacks he does with it. And so he does do training with it. and he goes to, and the day before, you know, oh, that whole thing happens, and he goes to sleep. And he sees, the day before the UA, sports festival, he goes to sleep. And while he's sleeping, every part of his body except for his hands and everything from his nose up is completely, covered in shadow. So if you've all seen the ending of season 4, I think it was the ending of season 4, you all know what it looks like. And it's all covered in this weird shadowy substance, and he sees 8 figures there. And one is still, shadowed in darkness, but has the figure of Toshinori. And the one with white hair, the very first one, the very first user of One for All, looks at him and he says, "So you're the 9th.